So as I go ahead and bring up our timer, Ryan, as the person who was the favorite, as predetermined by our wheel, you chose to go first on questions 1 and 3, which means you will be up first on this question. And as
Ah,
your timer comes into frame, myself and my haunted
oh
lights
my
will
God,
disappear,
look at
and it will
this.
start once you begin
This
speaking.
is nice.
I'm sorry, I can't help it, but this is some good imagery and graphics. So thank you. What was it, Lillian? Is that it? Fantastic, lovely.
This is
Can
better.
we give her a trophy for this? Can we give her a medal or something? Kevin, we're gonna give her a medal or something. We'll get her a gift.
8:56. Okay.
Anyway, what was the question? I'm sorry. What?
I don't know what happened.
Oh, the timer begins when I start yapping. If I haven't already. Oh
I'm
shoot,
still staring at
we
the
got
lights.
kicked
Honestly,
off. I'm so
nah,
sorry, Aaron.
the demons got him. It's fine.
I'm so
Have we
sorry.
started? I don't
No,
remember if they said we started or
no,
not.
the clock hasn't started yet because otherwise it would start counting down. Because it was on the side of the screen where we were. So sorry, Aaron.
And welcome back once again to the second half of our Movie Battleground Blitz. That's right. If you missed the first part of this event, I've actually come up with a name. And if there's no special image, then by the next one, I'll have branding because I'm very slow at this. This is, of course, our double upload event where we have two great matches going up back to back. If you didn't check out the first half, don't leave this video. Go back to that after this. We had a great match between Alec Miller and Jeremy Adams. So go check that out and see who won to move on to the next round of the tournament. And the winner of that match will be playing the winner of this match. I have Ryan Permison taking on Madeeh or Rehman. Both of these guys have a lot of experience in debate in the battleground. Madeeh is a journeyman competitor of Movie Battleground. He's done this a lot of times, like seriously, so much that he actually benefited from the record scrapping, because he is 1-0 right now. As my lights are having a conniption behind me, I do apologize, guys. I will change that bulb soon. In terms of Ryan, he is obviously a two-time champ from some of our previous debate leagues, but he's never quite got there in Battleground. And of course, this tournament is what could push him to that, depending on who wins tonight. Because this is a long night with two matches, I'm not going to waste any more of your time. Let's get into it. Because introducing first with a record of 1 win, no defeats, he is the man who will deem himself pantsless, Madeeh Rehman. Madeeh, how's it going?
I don't have to deem myself pantsless. I am pantsless, but for the sake of keeping the sponsorships on YouTube, I won't reveal anything. Aaron, you changed that light bulb 2 days ago. You know it. There's a demon in your house. I'm sorry. You're not gonna make it to the end of the match.
Maybe. It's a little late. Halloween was like 2 months ago, but still.
Yeah, and the demon's still sticking around. Charge of Ranch or something. I don't know. But either way, I'm excited for this, man. I haven't seen Ryan in a while. Him and I are pretty cool friends, so this will be
Yeah.
fun. I love Ryan, so we're gonna be very cordial and respectful until the match starts, and then we'll see how it goes.
Absolutely. And obviously, for those who didn't see your last match, you took on Matt Beer in sort of a weird last minute switch out situation. We lost a competitor, so Beer kind of was put in, and you were able to take him out, obviously, with a lot of confidence in that match. So, how do you feel
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of taking that into this one?
I feel pretty much the same. I definitely like the questions in this one better. That last match had one question that probably broke me more than I've ever been broken in my life. My therapist is still charging me for that, so thank you guys for writing that horrible question. But I'm feeling good. I'm feeling much better about this match. Kind of getting the first round jitters off is a good thing, and now going up against a guy who has been a champ and is a champ in. I don't know if he's still a champ, actually, technically. I don't know how the things work anymore. But
Neither
a
do
guy
I.
who has held a belt in Ryan, man, I can't ask for anything better.
Absolutely, man. Well, we'll go ahead and send you to the back where you're safe from the demons, and we'll bring you back in just a second
They
as
live
I
with me too, man.
introduce
It's all good.
your opponent. Well, so with a record of 1-0, he is Ryan Permison. Ryan, how's it going?
It's going well, good sir. Thank you for having me. This should be a fun match. Madeeh and I, as you said before, we're good pals. We're good buds. So it's weird. I really want to go into one of these matches, whether it's a debate or a trivia match, where I actually don't like the person that I'm facing. But in this case, I like this guy. I can't hate him. I can't say anything bad about him. So this is going to be tough for me to go up against one of my buds. But you know what? You're in my way, Madeeh. You're in my way. So it's time for you to leave because this is my time now. But other than that, this is going to be fun, man. And by the way, I feel like you're in the new film, Lights Out Part 2, and maybe Teresa Palmer is going to be your co-star, like she was the lead in the first film, because your
I would
light
think
will
that.
not stop blinking in my face. I don't know why. but I feel like they're trying to tell you something, that Lights Out Part 2 is coming soon to theaters.
That is what I am indicating. Stay tuned for that announcement. And so, obviously, in your first match to get here, you took on a rookie and Andy Sweet, who really did push you to the limits. What did you take from that match?
Then I don't want to go to the speed round because the speed round is nasty. It's Evil Knievel, and I don't want any piece of that cake, man. Let me tell you something. I mean, if I want something to eat, I'm going to get pizza. I don't want to have a bonus round in my future. I don't want that anymore. I'm tired of it. But no, listen, what I did learn from that was I got to be a little bit quicker on my toes, and I got to be a little bit more sufficient with my prep work, which I did for this match. I got tons and tons of pages of notes. Hopefully they will come to my rescue in this match, and if not, hey, least I can say that I put my best foot forward and I tried. But this should be a great matchup for sure.
Absolutely. So I'm going to go ahead and bring your buddy and opponent back into the frame, and let's go ahead and get into this. Movie Battleground is a game that is a best of 5 rounds. It is the first of 3 points to win. Each debate round is worth 1 point. If a competitor does happen to get 3 points in a row, that is a victory by knockout. And if there is a tie at the end of the first 4 rounds, we will go to the blind round, but we'll get there if we need to. In the regular debate rounds, the 4 questions were given to the competitors ahead of time. They've had that time to put together as much prep as they so choose. The way it breaks down, first, each competitor will get 60 seconds to open their argument, followed by another 2 minutes for them to just expand and elaborate on their pick. Then there will be 4 minutes of open debate where the competitors can go back and forth at each other to get as many points in as possible, followed by 60 seconds to close it out, summarize the argument, and make your final points. At that point, I am joined backstage by 2 great judges in the form of JD Domash and Abel Delu. If it comes to it, we need a 3rd judge. I will be serving as that 3rd judge for this evening, as we only have the 2. But once the competitors are done, they will go off screen. My judges will join me, and we will go to the decisions for the debates. With that said, are both of you gentlemen ready?
I have a question, actually.
Yes.
Does anyone know Morse code? Because I feel like the lights are trying to tell us something, but I don't know the language, and I'm trying to make sure that we're all safe here.
I can learn before the end of the match if you'd like.
I can't speak to Morse code, but I will say this: I'm ready for this matchup. And by the way, great graphics to the producers back there. Great graphics.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Shout out to by the time this goes up, shout out to Kevin Poss's now wife Lillian for creating those for us.
Oh yeah,
congratulations, Kevin! You found the love of your life, and you got the fairy tale ending that only guys like us can only dream of. So congratulations to both you and the love of your life. That is fantastical. We're gonna have a big party for you in person when Earth fully reopens. We can get a bunch of us to meet somewhere in the middle of the U.S. of A. Because I know a lot of us live in different states.
So what are we talking, like Indiana? Is that where we're talking? Madeeh's going to have to cross state lines anyways.
I'm not sure if I'm allowed to.
Dude, you're in Canada. We got to find a way to get you down here to the States.
I'll sneak in. Like, cover of winter, I'll just come in. You guys have winter down there, so I can just walk through the snow or something.
You should see how bad it is in the Northeast where I live. Good Lord.
Oh, man, don't even try. Don't even try.
So, speaking of all this sneaking around and doing stuff that's probably illegal, a man who's directed films that feature a lot of things that would probably be illegal if we were to do them is a man by the name of Martin Campbell. And so we asked the question. Yeah, thank you.
That is a good segue.
What is the best film directed by Mr. Martin Campbell? If you look up this man's filmography, he has done a lot of different movies.
It's vast.
And these guys picked 2 that are very close to each other. You'll understand what I mean
in
just a second.
I don't think there's anything similar about them. I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know.
Yeah, maybe I'm misjudging that one.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure. No problem. All right. So, what is the best film directed by Martin Campbell? So, I'll tell you what. When it comes to Martin Campbell, he's got a big filmography. This guy has done so many different films. He's worked with a lot of well-known actors. But the one that stands out to me as the best film directed by Martin Campbell is Casino Royale from 2006. This film has it all, and it has it in spades. From the beginning to the end, it has 3-dimensional characters. It has a great cast, some of whom audiences were introduced to for the very first time. Others, some of these actors have been in films before this, but they weren't really as well known as they became worldwide superstars in this film. First Bond film for Daniel Craig. Eva Green did a few films before this, but everybody knew who Eva Green was after this film. This is how good she was, by being arguably the best Bond girl in the history of Bond girls, as the character of Vesper Lynd, as well as many other reasons why Casino Royale is the best film ever directed by Martin Campbell, but I'll discuss more as we go on. I will concede the rest of my time. Back to you at the desk.
Absolutely. I'll go ahead and pause it as it counts down. Madeeh, time starts back for you when you speak.
Ryan, I'm surprised at you that you didn't pick his magnum opus, Green Lantern, but that's neither here nor there. I am also going with a Martin Campbell James Bond film. However, I'm going with the one from 1995, known as GoldenEye. A lot of the things that my compatriot here just said are also true about my film. It was the first outing of a new Bond, with Pierce Brosnan taking the role and really doing phenomenal in that job. We also had Sean Bean do a phenomenal, spoiler alert, by the way, phenomenal job as 006, also known as Alec, who becomes the villain throughout the course of the film. Famke Janssen has a terrific turn as a villain as well, which is also one of the strong points of this movie. And although Vesper Lind is one of the great Bond girls, another one is Natalia, who is shown in this film. I'm not going to go into more now because I feel like we're going to have our time for that later. But for now, I'm going to leave it as is. So back to you, Aaron.
I like the professionalism of everybody making sure they know that it's coming back to me next. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Ryan, you are up next. Your 2 minutes will start when you begin speaking.
Wow. It's a long time. There's not much to say. No, kidding. So here's the deal when it comes to Casino Royale. Yes, GoldenEye had its time to shine in the 90s. It was a fantastic movie. There's no question about it. It's one of my all-time favorite action films. But Casino Royale took the James Bond franchise in a more grounded, grittier, more serious tone than GoldenEye did. GoldenEye still had some serious elements, but not nearly as much as Casino Royale. Casino Royale starts off black and white shots. First 5 minutes, you're introduced to this new character, this new Bond. Daniel Craig walks in. We learn about this character before he even becomes James Bond, before he even gets his 00 status, his 00 license to kill, because it takes 2 kills to get your 00 license. And you see that happen in brutal and gritty fashion. Not only do you have the opening scene in black and white, which up to that point had never been done before in a Bond film, but you have great title music by Chris Cornell, the late great Chris Cornell, I might say, of Soundgarden, R.I.P. Chris. Eva Green came into her own, one of the best Bond girl, probably the best Bond girl who ever lived. 3-dimensional character that was realized during the course of this movie. This film was, took what Timothy Dalton tried to incorporate into his series of Bond films, but they put it in Daniel Craig's and they turned it up to 11. And they did it bigger, they did it faster, and they did it better. So with that being said, I mean, a lot of people name Casino Royale as the best Bond film of all time, if not one of the better Bond films since the Connery days. This film alone made over $600 million worldwide during its entire theatrical run in the year 2006. It was named the 4th highest grossing film of that year. So you can't argue with some of those numbers. I'll get into more of that as we go forward. But other than that, there's just no question. Casino Royale is the best of the best, and I will concede the rest of my time.
All right, conceding the remainder of his time. I have jumped ahead slightly too much, but don't worry, I will make sure you get that time back. Madeeh, it will start when you begin speaking.
Casino Royale is a great film. There's no doubt about it. However, it's not Daniel Craig's best. Although some people might argue with that, I say that Skyfall is his best. Whereas GoldenEye, if you look at that one, it is Pierce Brosnan's best. He was never better, and the James Bond franchise, talking about turning the corner and kind of becoming more serious, this entry really did that. A lot of people don't really give GoldenEye the credit it deserves, just because the later films in Brosnan's career did kind of overshadow and got a little bit more campy. This one really utilized CGI for the first time in a Bond franchise and did very well. It told a great story, had brilliant action, and you're talking about an opening set piece. The opening set piece where he's, I think skydiving is the correct term, but I don't know what the actual term is, in Russia and infiltrating the Russian base is, I would argue, just as good as the one from Casino Royale, just told in a different way. Yeah, in Daniel Craig's version, we see him as more of like a rookie who doesn't know what he's doing yet. Pierce Brosnan comes into a role that we already know. James Bond is a character we've known for over 50 years now. He's not trying to reinvent him in a way that is changing too much. He comes in a more modern way, and that is evident when Judi Dench's character says, "You're a misogynistic piece of shit," paraphrasing, calling him out on his crap that he's done over the past 50 years and really putting him in place. It was a more modern take. It just doesn't get the credit that it's deserving of because we've also gotten these movies later on that have kind of pushed it even further. But in terms of quality of a film, I would say GoldenEye is just as good. I think one of the things that GoldenEye really does, and a lot of the Bond movies that do well have this, is have a phenomenal Bond along with the great villains and the great side characters around him. Bond on his own is fine, but some of the more iconic things about the James Bond franchise is the surroundings and the people around him and the gadgets and the things around him as well. Casino Royale doesn't really have that. GoldenEye really does, and GoldenEye's influence can be felt throughout the next series and as well as throughout Daniel Craig's era as well.
All right. And now we move on to the 4-minute open battle. The timer will begin when the first person speaks.
Ryan, I'll let you go first.
I was going to pull a Kalinowski on you, but that's fine. So let's get into this a little bit because you brought up some fair points about GoldenEye, but let me counter you with that. First of all, GoldenEye has a 75% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Casino Royale has a 94% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. The consensus reads, and I quote, which is the name of my talk show, which you can catch every Saturday at noon Eastern, on that little tag there that says at It's Nerd Culture. Casino Royale disposes of the silliness as well as the gadgetry that plagued recent James Bond outings, and Daniel Craig delivers what the fans and critics have been waiting for, a caustic, haunted, intense reinvention of 007. I don't think you can argue with numbers, pal. And also, it's the second highest rating, Rotten Tomatoes rating, to be more specific, for a Bond film on the site known as Rotten Tomatoes, alongside Russia with Love, Dr. No, which is behind Goldfinger, which Goldfinger has a 99% Rotten Tomatoes score. So Casino Royale made many critics' top 10 lists of that year, respectively, within 2006. Once again, it took what Timothy Dalton tried to do within Living Daylights and License to Kill, and it brought it into the 21st century, not 24th. We're not in Star Trek times yet. So 21st century, and the Bond girls in GoldenEye, yeah, they had maybe 1.5 layers to them, but Vesper Lynd was a fully fleshed out, three-dimensional character that we've never seen in a Bond girl. And Eva Green ran away with that character, and she killed it 100%. A lot of people say, you talk about the cliff jump in the beginning of GoldenEye where he jumps off to dive to infiltrate that Russian facility. That's a great stunt, but let me tell you this. Parkour. The parkour sequence between Daniel Craig and that parkour athlete running through the crane site, the construction site, is some of the best action sequences ever put on film.
You want to talk about an action sequence? Let's talk about the tank rolling through St. Petersburg in GoldenEye. A real good twist on the classic, all right, the heroes in a smaller car has to escape the big tank. Putting James Bond in the tank and being kind of the predator trying to catch the prey is a huge twist, and I absolutely loved it. There's also the part that he takes that same tank and shoots the train with Sean Bean's character and the rest of the villains as well as Natalia. The action in GoldenEye, I would say, is much higher than it is a higher standard than it is in Casino Royale. Casino Royale had a much bigger budget, you got to remember, so they really had a lot more room to work with, whereas GoldenEye was really the first time they really put a lot of money into a James Bond film. I mean, relatively speaking, I think before then, the biggest movie that they had was about $30 million. And this one doubled it up to about $60 million as a budget, I think. All of these movies have been successful. I'm not saying that your movie is bad, but I'm saying that in terms of the best film directed by Martin Campbell, I would say would be Nightfall. I'm talking about the goddamn game that came out a couple years later. Would be GoldenEye. Another thing that really, it's a gripe that I have about Casino Royale. There's two things that really take it down for me. I think that there's the side characters in Casino Royale that aren't as much as I want them to be. I mean, you have Bond, you have the main villain, and you have the one Bond girl. And outside of that, there's not really anybody who is compelling or memorable in that movie. There's the other poker players, and that's another thing. Poker is a really boring game to watch, and so much of this movie is based around that poker table, which is fine because it's a part of the story. But when you're trying to watch it as an audience member, it is not that interesting. I don't really want to see people flipping cards and trying to figure out the math. I don't play poker, so knowing what was what and having the intensity of like, oh, there's an ace here, there's a 4 here, and a 7 there, and I'm sitting there going, I have no idea what the fuck is going on. it doesn't really play well unless you're already aware of the way that the poker game is played. GoldenEye is a much easier film for everyone to take in. And it also has a lot of supporting characters that are really good. Like Robbie Coltrane's Zukovsky is great. Joe Don Baker as Wade, as the CIA agent, is really good. Alan Cumming as the invincible Boris is awesome. And also the great Desmond Llewellyn as Q, with one of the great lines in Bond history saying, "Don't touch that. That's my lunch." There's so many moments in GoldenEye that supersede and do so well in an entire franchise that has so many historic moments.
And that is time. We will go to our final 1 minute closings. Ryan, you're back up. Time starts when you begin speaking.
When it comes to Casino Royale, they didn't have to rely on double sexual innuendos and double entendres. They didn't have to rely on gadgets. They specifically focused on the character. And some people said that a lot of the action sequences and some of the other gadgets and the innuendos in the later Pierce Brosnan films took away from a bit, to a degree, from the Bond franchise. This one was so good and so well directed. Martin Campbell rebooted this franchise not once but twice, and he did it so well in both films, but he did it so much better in Casino Royale because we've seen a James Bond in that film, Casino Royale, that we've never seen before. It's an origin story. It's a new Bond. The internet blew up. They did not want this guy to play the character simply just because he had blonde hair, for Pete's sake. But he came in, made the character his own, and he ran away with it. And Martin Campbell directed this so well with the choreography, the action sequences, and everything else. Once again, this thing was nominated for so many awards at the BAFTA Awards and other award shows. I didn't hear anybody talk about GoldenEye winning any awards, as far back as I can remember, 95. So that's why Casino Royale, 94% rating. All these actors in Casino Royale went on to do bigger and better things, whereas the actors in GoldenEye, not all of them went on to do bigger and better things. So there you go.
And
Casino
time.
Royale's number one.
All right, Madeeh, you're up next for the final minute. Time starts when you begin speaking.
There's a key point in something you said in your closing session where you said the later Bond films from Pierce Brosnan's franchise. Yeah, the later ones are not that great. I'm not talking about those ones. I'm talking about GoldenEye. GoldenEye, which was a great film and was able to master that balance between the quips, between the innuendos, between all those things that we know from classic Bond, that had an entire world thinking that Pierce Brosnan was up there with the Sean Connery level. Daniel Craig has done well, but Daniel Craig has done well because of the other films that also came after it. Pierce Brosnan really only had that one movie, and then they kind of got muddled with weird CGI and all the other stuff that they kind of relied too heavily on in the later films. But when they did it in GoldenEye, they mastered it. They perfected it. They did really well. The action sequences are so well shot. And it's not about a character origin story of a character that we've known for almost 50 years. They were able to fit this person, this new actor, into this story and into this franchise as if we had known him for the entire course of the 50 years. The 50 years. And you talk about people having careers afterwards. Robbie Coltrane and Alan Cumming and Mina Driver all had great roles afterwards.
I do apologize there on the delay of bringing that back up. All right, guys, another good first fight. I'm going to go ahead and send both of you to the back, and I will bring in our two judges, JD and Abel. And just to throw a couple of fun fact checks out, just in case anybody was curious. So in terms of talking about the success of the film, Ryan was right. The film did gross over $600 million at the box office, which I believe, if I am correct, made it at the time the most successful of the James Bond films that had been released to date. In terms of the budgets, Casino Royale did have a budget of had a budget of 150 million, which to that point was by far the biggest budget. GoldenEye had a budget of 60 million, and prior to that, the highest budget I believe was the Timothy Dalton film The Living Daylights, which was made for about 40 million. In terms of Rotten Tomatoes, which is the other thing that brought up, GoldenEye does have a 79% critic like rating and an 83% audience like rating. Casino Royale has a 94% critic rating and a 90% audience rating. But none of that truly matters. It's all about what the competitors said and what our judges believe off of it. So JD, I go to you first. Who sold you best for the point, and what was the main thing that did it?
First off, great first round. It was very close for me. I was going back and forth for most of the match, or for most of this round. What ultimately sold me, I think that the fact that Madeeh actually chose something that was a curveball. I didn't actually know that Martin Campbell directed GoldenEye, so the fact he had to sell it more, the fact he had to give more specifics like the St. Petersburg sequence and trying to sell it more actually worked in his favor, where I felt Ryan felt was relying on Rotten Tomato scores and what it grossed. And I also believe the GoldenEye, his Dean's argument about balance, how it kind of fit the old with the new. So my point goes to Madeeh.
All right, so the first vote goes to Madeeh. Abel, I go to you. Who does your vote go to, and what sold you?
I was also going back and forth on this one because they both brought up some really good points. I would have liked to have heard him talk a little bit more about the director himself instead of like James Bond. But the person who I think had the most to say about the actual skill of the director that we were talking about was Ryan. So I'm going to give it to Ryan because he brought it back more to the point of the best film directed by Martin Campbell, not necessarily the best James Bond movie. So that's why I think Ryan got it for me.
All right, which means it'll come up to me, and I will echo the sentiments of both of the competitors. Both the judges. This was a very, very close round. You guys really brought it from the first round on. But I am going to give my slight edge to Madeeh, and it is kind of for the points that I think JD made, in that I think Ryan on paper picked the safer choice. Not that affected his argument, but it made Madeeh kind of come out a bit more and give more specifics to prove the point of why his film is better. And so in the context of the debate, I am going to go with Ryan or Madeeh on that, excuse me. But judges, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and send you both to the back and bring back in our competitors as we go ahead and get to round number 2.
I thought I lost that one.
That hurts, bro. That hurts. There were a few other points I wanted to make to counter some of yours, Madeeh, but I get it, man. I get it.
No, that was a good one. Can you imagine if they got that mad over Daniel Craig being blonde, what they'll do with something?
Dude, the internet exploded when they casted it. They were like, this guy should be nowhere near this franchise because he has blonde hair and he has blue eyes. It's like, who cares?
That was a very real thing.
Dude, the internet blew up when this movie was coming out.
It's honestly kind of funny to look back at. They're like, a blonde guy can't play James Bond, and now we have
dark hair.
He has to have black hair. He has to look like.
Yeah. God help those people if Idris Elba gets cast. They're gonna have another battle.
Listen. If he gets cast, I would not be upset at that because he's a great actor.
I'd be first in line, but I know there's gonna be people going, him?
The guy from Luther is gonna play Bond? I thought he was a Luther guy.
So to try and create a segue out of this,
next up we're going to talk about. What's your clever segue for this?
How are you going to go from us talking about Idris Elba to this next one?
We're going to go to somebody who's never directed a Bond film, nor has he starred in one. That's a fact.
Okay.
And we've been laughing a lot, and I'd say this guy's best films make us laugh. So the question is, continuing the trend of positive questions in this match. What is the best film directed by Mel Brooks, the classic comedy director who many will know? If you are a young and up and coming, you will know him mainly, sadly, as the voice of Adam Sandler's dad in the Hotel Transylvania films. But he's actually a director, and he's done much better work than those films. And we're going to talk about. That's a fact. We're going to talk about two of them today, and I'd say at least half of the other ones we're not talking about are better than those two. So I'm going to go ahead and bring the timer back up. And Madeeh, you are up first on this one. So the timer will begin when you start speaking.
I love Mel Brooks, and I love the movies that both of us have picked. I want to start out by saying that these are both brilliant films. However, there's one that started it all. And there's one that, in my opinion, has never been topped by him or by most other comedy writers, directors, what have you. And that is The Producers from 1967. This movie, a little fun fact for you guys if you weren't aware, when it first came out, it spoofed on Nazi Germany and Hitler so hard that the studio was not willing to release it because they were worried about backlash. And it wasn't until Peter Sellers saw a private cut of it and he pushed for it to be released that it got released and then was nominated for multiple Oscars and actually won one for Mel Brooks as well. So The Producers is his greatest work. It's his magnum opus. He came out of the gate swinging. It is probably one of the best movies as a debut for a director or a writer that have ever come out. And the only ones that I could think of that would maybe rival that would be something like Ben Affleck from Gone Baby Gone. But this movie is a classic, and it has stood the test of time for almost 60 years. Holy shit, that's a long time. 60 years.
Wow.
Jesus. I just
And
did
Mel
that
Brooks
math
is
in my
still
head.
alive. He's still breathing, man.
Keep on kicking, man. Him.
Jeez.
Yeah. Oof.
Is he in his 90s now?
He would have to be.
Someone has to Google that backstage.
Let me do that.
I'll
real
have
quick.
the answer for you at the end. Ryan, your minute starts when you begin speaking about your answer.
Yeah, I don't even know what we're doing here. What's the question? Oh, yeah. All right, so here's the deal. Let's talk about Mel Brooks for a minute, because this guy has done so much in such a long time, so many decades, so many films, so many actors and actresses have the privilege of working with this young man known as Mel Brooks. Maybe he's not so young anymore, but we're trying to give you some credit here, Mel. So when this film came out, it didn't do so well in the box office, but it developed a huge and humongous cult following for a good amount of reasons. I'm talking about Spaceballs. This film doesn't always get mentioned in like some of the greater comedies, maybe the top 5s, top 10s of all time. But this film, seriously, is a lot of fun. It puts a smile on your face. It's got some great jokes, great in-references. It spoofs some of your favorite sci-fi action films, whether it be Star Wars, Planet of the Apes, Alien, Aliens, all that stuff. And there's a couple of other reasons why this film has become so popular in the decades since its initial release, but we'll get more into that a little bit later. I can see the rest of my time.
All right, and as the timer ticks down there, thank you to one of our judges backstage. Mel Brooks is a whopping 95 years old.
Wow. Keep on kicking, Mel.
Go for it, man. Shoot for the century. We're pulling for you, man.
Long time.
95.
Right? Man, can you imagine
Madeeh, you are in awe, and up next you have 2 minutes on the clock when you begin speaking.
Man, I'm 27. If I make it to 30, I'll be happy, but 95, holy shit.
God.
Okay, so as I said at the beginning, I love both of these movies. However, the thing is with the producers is that it has changed the way that comedies and spoof movies have been made and has left a lasting legacy over the last 60 years. It was the first time that anyone really thought of doing a comedy about something that was so serious. And when we look at comedy now, I mean, the Farrelly Brothers, South Park, anything that has made fun or satirized something else all comes from the producers. Everything is from the producers. Its legacy has lasted that long for a reason. The producers has some of the greatest comedy moments of all time with Gene Wilder and Zero Mostel in their office when he's going hysterical over a blue blanket. I can never watch that scene and not pause it because I'm laughing too hard, but I want to make sure I get the entire scene in. There's never, like, the countless times I've watched it over and over again, it never gets old. And it continues to make people laugh, not just me, but people around the world laugh at how ridiculous it is and how funny it is. But at the same time, it has the heart that pushes you forward. It's not just a comedy making fun of Hitler. It's a ridiculous story, but also has Gene Wilder and Zero Mostel as this weird odd couple pairing that I would put up there as one of the best odd couples in cinematic history. The musical numbers that they have throughout this movie are stellar and done brilliantly well. Gene Wilder, in my opinion, has never been better on screen. He was great as Willy Wonka. He was great as a young Dr. Frankenstein. But this movie was his best work, and he was nominated for an Oscar for supporting actor for it as well. And Ryan, in the last one, you brought up the Rotten Tomatoes score. I got to bring it up here again. Rotten Tomatoes has producers at a 90%. Spaceballs is at a 56, which is low, but I mean, you got to give it to him, man. That's a big difference for it.
And time. All right, Ryan, you have 2 minutes. Time starts when you begin speaking.
First of all, how dare you bring up Rotten Tomatoes? How dare you bring up my film has a lesser rating than yours? But anyway, listen, on a serious note, let's talk about this. Return of the Jedi came out in 1983. We all thought Star Wars was gone after that. We didn't think we were ever going to see another Star Wars film. 1987 rolls around, and we got a new Star Wars film, but it was in a comedic and fun, poking fun at your genre way. And Mel Brooks did it better than anyone has ever done it. Sure, they poked fun at it on The Muppet Show with Mark Hamill and his friends. Sure, they did it on other talk shows and Saturday Night Live. But they never did it as well as Mel Brooks did it with the film simply known as Spaceballs. Now, before you say Rick Moranis, who's Rick Moranis? Rick Moranis plays Dark Helmet, one of the best spoof versions of Darth Vader you're ever going to see in a film, period. This guy throws out one-liners like it's candy. It's nothing, and he's so good at it. The rest of this cast, phenomenal. Not only does this film have a cult following that is established over the last 35 years, gee whiz, we are getting old for this, Madeeh. But Tesla Motors has used Spaceballs, Starship Speed, ludicrous speed, as as inspiration for naming their own acceleration modes in their cars. That's insane. That's out of this world. In an homage to Spaceballs, Tesla has ludicrous mode for acceleration beyond its insane mode and plaid mode. They've gone to plaid. Over top and ludicrous and all that stuff. And then you got to take in the merchandising. The Boring Company sold 20,000 flamethrowers in the year 2018 that were just inspired by the Spaceballs merchandising scene alone. If that doesn't say that this film has had a huge influence on pop culture despite its RT rating, I don't know what will. And I don't know how much time I have left, but I will say this. There's more to talk about in just a moment, but I'm going to concede the rest of my time. There's the timer. Thank you, people in the back.
Absolutely. All right.
He is going to out of this world.
Remaining seconds. We are on to the 4 minutes. The time will start when the first person speaks.
Man, I got to tell you, Spaceballs, as much as it is a great movie, it's probably Mel Brooks' third best spoof movie behind Young Frankenstein and Blazing Saddles, both of which I would put ahead of Spaceballs as his 2 and 3 best movies of all time, with Producers being number 1. So you're not even picking his second best or his third best. You're picking his fourth best, which is an inspiring choice on your end, but it doesn't hold up as much as the other two do. Blazing Saddles is a greater movie that you could have picked. Young Frankenstein is a greater movie that you could have picked. I'm kind of curious about why you picked a movie that most of its comedy comes from a lot of dumb humor. I mean, there's the Schwartz is as big as yours when they're holding it up to their dicks. It's funny. I definitely laugh. But in terms of like the quality of the film, it is kind of like bottom grade comedy. Like it's not as clever or as smart as it really could have been. And a lot of the jokes they make are just kind of low level, bombastic jokes that will just get a big laugh, but not really there for, anything more than just that.
Okay, I can see where you're coming from, but let me stop you right there. So let's go into this for a minute, because Spaceballs has a bigger influence on pop culture than your other films that you just mentioned, and let me tell you why. Do you see anyone at Comic-Cons dressing up as any of the characters, whether it be from Producers, Young Frankenstein, or Blazing Saddles, that have a lot of, some touchy-feely humor that may not be appropriate for all audiences? No. When you go to conventions, you see people dress up as Lord Helmet, you see people dress up as his foot soldiers, you see people dress up as President Scroob, and who's the other character? Lone Star, Princess Vespa. Funny, she doesn't look Jewish. And other characters. I mean, people have dressed up as Dot, from the late great Joan Rivers. By the way, rest in peace, Joan Rivers. Gone too soon. Just saying. So I don't see any of those characters roaming around the halls of Hall H at San Diego Comic-Con. Do you? Do you?
I don't know if that.
Do
if
you?
that
Does the people in the back
qualifies as a
watching
great
this, do
movie.
you see those people at Comic-Con? I don't think so. So that's why Spaceballs has a bigger influence on pop culture than The Producers. By the way, The Producers is a musical that's been around for decades. So Mel Brooks may have added a funny comedic element to it, but other than that, he didn't really add too much to it.
Hold up. The Producers as a musical was inspired based off the movie that Mel Brooks wrote. So Mel Brooks was the original writer that put it all together. And yeah, you're not going to get people dressed up as guys from The Producers at a Comic-Con. It's not the right audience. Comic-Con is built for the sci-fi stuff and the nerd culture that we kind of live in today. There you go. But the Producers is completely separate from that. If you're basing something on how iconic you see it at a Comic-Con, then Transformers would be a great movie, but it's not. Like, that's not what we're arguing. And if it's more iconic today, yeah, it's because Star Wars is still coming out. There's Star Trek stuff coming out. There's alien stuff still coming out. All of these sci-fi universes still have products coming out because the CGI and the computer enhancements have all like enhanced, and we're able to make better versions of them or more visually pleasing versions of them. The producers, when it was made, could be made at any time throughout history, and it would be the exact same movie. Why? Because they didn't need all that stuff. That doesn't affect the quality of the film. The quality of the film has been and has always been a grade A level comedy. Spaceballs is good, but it's gotten more popular because of pop culture as the culture has kind of adapted in the modern day. You can't say that, oh, it's more iconic at a Comic-Con or it's more popular and therefore it's better. That's not the argument. The argument is which of these is a better film, and it's definitely the producers. The cast from top to bottom is great. You have laughs coming from the main characters in Gene Wilder and Zero, and then you also have the guy who's giving hot dogs who says some of the funniest lines in the movie as well. And I don't even know what the guy's name is. In the credits, he's just titled as Hot Dog Vendor. And he's still got the line where he's like, keep your change. Like, it's so funny. Like, everyone in this movie has something to do, and it all culminates into a great overall film.
All right, and that will be time on the 4 minutes. We're going to go to the 1 minute closing. Madeeh, you are up first, so time will start when you begin speaking.
All right.
It's a lot.
It is a lot. The producers is what started Mel Brooks' career and has also now started hundreds of people's careers following. We're arguing about the greatest film directed by Mel Brooks, and you feel Mel Brooks in every single line that's written in this movie. Spaceballs is obviously an homage to Star Wars and Star Trek and all these other sci-fi creations that we've come to grow and love, especially since the 80s. But it's more of a dumb, little down comedy and spoof of certain things that show up, where the producers was an original film that he had wanted to tell and tells a brilliant, perfect story about this weird, odd couple trying to make money in a strange flop that makes fun of Hitler. I don't know how I said that sounding serious, but it's when you see the movie, you realize that the heart is there, as well as all of the other things that have come into it that have made it a classic comedy. Spaceballs is good, but it's not his best work. It's spoofing a lot of sci-fi franchises and has become popular, but that doesn't always mean that it's better.
And that will be time. Ryan, you have the final say on the round. 1 minute for you when you begin speaking.
Let me tell you why I picked Spaceballs as the best film directed by Mel Brooks. Not only is it a cultural touchstone, not only is it celebrated amongst geek fans and non-geek fans alike, but it's also one of the more, if not the most accessible film in Mel Brooks' filmography. The ones you just mentioned are very racy, R-rated, and not all audiences can watch those, whereas Spaceballs can be accessible to a much younger audience. Sure, there's some stuff in there that maybe it's a little bit inappropriate, maybe a little bit below, maybe a little bit above their pay grade for some of the youngins. But at least they're going to get the majority of what the heck is going on, because most people, if not all, have been exposed to those sci-fi properties that he is spoofing in this film. Spaceballs is rated PG. I'm going to hazard a guess and say the producers probably, if it was rated back then, I would probably say it was rated R. So with that being said, Spaceballs is the best film directed by Mel Brooks because it's the most accessible one to all audiences. Everybody can watch it, and that film is re-aired on television and streaming services more times than the producers can even count. So that is why Spaceballs is the best film directed by Mel Brooks in this case, and all the actors went on to do greater things, not just the ones in the producers.
And that is time on the round. All right, guys. Another good one. I'm going to go ahead.
Back then?
What happened?
I can't tell if they had like age ratings on movies back
then. Trust me, as a fact checker, I'm going to find that out. Go.
Look at you.
All right.
Look,
I'm going to go ahead.
I'm playing the cards I got dealt here, boy.
Yeah, but.
And I will bring in our judges, and I'm going to go ahead and run through some quick fact checks as well here. So because Rotten Tomatoes was brought up again, I do like to bring up the scores just in case our competitor said something wrong. In this case, they didn't. They were both correct. Spaceballs does have a 56% critic-like rating. It does have an 83% audience-like rating. The producers has a 90% critic rating and an 85% audience-like rating. The producers was nominated for 2 Academy Awards. It won for Best Story and Screenplay written directly for the screen, which was the old way of saying Best Original Screenplay. It also was nominated for Best Supporting Actor for Gene Wilder. The reference to Tesla Motors, for those who did not know that, is in fact 100% correct. Tesla Motors used the 4 speeds listed in Spaceballs as light speed, ridiculous speed, ludicrous speed, and plaid speed as inspiration for their acceleration modes. This is, again, for those who did not know, 100% true. For what it's worth, because we were talking about the quality, they were talking about kind of ranking other Mel Brooks films. According to Rotten Tomatoes, which again is not the end-all be-all, but is a very solid aggregate. According to critics, Rotten Tomatoes is actually the #1 film from Mel Brooks. Second would be The 12 Chairs, according to Rotten Tomatoes. Third would be The Producers. Fourth, Blazing Saddles. And then there's a few more down, obviously, with the Rotten score. Spaceballs is a little lower for critics. And then, yes, as it was mentioned, the Producers musical released in 2001 was in fact based on the movie, and itself was then readapted into a second film in 2005. The character that was mentioned by Madeeh, hot dog vendor, is in fact how that character is credited, portrayed by actor Brutus Peck. Shout out to that guy. And I was able to find it. The Producers was rated PG because back in the day, people didn't care as much as to what their kids watched. It probably would be reappraised in the modern era. With all that said, and for what it's worth, the remake was PG-13. So for all we know, that's probably where it would fall. So with that said, Abel, I go to you first this time around. Who won it for you?
Just want to say, I don't give a flying F about Rotten Tomatoes, so maybe we can just forego that in the next couple of arguments. But this was a little bit more cut and dry for me, to be honest. I feel like Madeeh really took this one and ran away with it. He sold me on the influence, on the legacy, and on the timelessness of the movie. Yeah, great counter arguments for every single one of Ryan's arguments. And this was a bit of a blowout for me.
All right, JD, I go to you. Who gets your vote and what sold you?
My point also went to Madeeh. It basically came down to I think Ryan spent too much time arguing about the cultural significance of Spaceballs, while Madeeh was arguing what was the best film directed by Mel Brooks, who I love, and by the way, great fellow Jew. So my point goes to Madeeh.
All right, judges, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and send you to the back. And unfortunately, Abel, I don't mean to disappoint you, but almost everyone and anyone goes to Rotten Tomatoes. It's a very, very easy thing to go to sometimes.
Sorry, buddy.
So best of
right
luck
there,
telling
dude.
nobody to use it.
No offense, but it's right there.
Yeah, man, come on.
It
Like,
helps.
I typed in the movie, it was the first thing that came up after IMDb. Come on now.
Yeah.
All right, so we are
All
going to
good.
go on to question number 3.
Yeah, it's do or die for me now, Aaron. It's do or die.
I guess it is. I mean,
I'm just going to say, if you want to go to sudden death and do the speed round, we can. But
oh god,
I'm going to try and make it easy for you.
Thank you. We'll see. I really thought I had you on that first one, but it's all good.
Yeah, that first one.
All right, question number 3. Continuing the trend of we're just giving positive questions today. You know,
why not?
Ryan was pushed to the limits last time. Madeeh had to talk about, cover your ears, Rob Zombie. So we're going to give these guys some nice questions, and we're going to go a little old school with this one. I say old school is the youngest person in the call, but the question is, in a world where things are constantly being revived, rebooted, and whatever else, which one-off action film from the 1980s should receive its own modern-day sequel? There were a lot of original concept films released in the 80s that have not had sequels, and so the question here is, which one of them should get one today? I'm going to go ahead and bring the timer back up, and Ryan, once again, you are up first on the clock, so 1 minute starts when you begin speaking.
All right. So in the 1980s, there are a lot of great films out there. Some really good films, some good original ideas from very creative people, and some wonderful actors and actresses to portray these roles that these people have written and produced. So I'm going to go with this one. I just saw this film for the first time, either earlier this year or last year. I can't remember which because the apocalypse has been going on for a very long time and people get confused. I'm going to go with The Last Starfighter from 1980. I believe it's 1984. Yeah. The Last Starfighter. What is The Last Starfighter? I'll tell you what it is. It's a simple story about this kid, this teenager named Alex Rogan, played by Lance Guest, who loves a video game. He loves to play this video game called The Last Starfighter. And he has the high score. And one night, someone magically appears to this kid and says, hey, you want to fly with the best people in the galaxy and fight against the evil empire and save the galaxy with the Last Starfighter people? We're going to have you do that. So literally, this kid is living his dream of being a part of this video game that has magically come to life in reality. There's more to tell, but I'll tell you that in just a moment.
All right. Madeeh, back to you. 1 minute on the clock when you speak.
It was so quick, man.
I'm going to start with a little bit of a musical number, but I don't want the viewers to hurt themselves, so be wary. I'm not that great of a singer. Flash, he saved the universe. I'm going with Flash Gordon. It's funny because I originally had Midnight Run, and then I thought Flash Gordon, and now Midnight Run is actually potentially getting a sequel, so sucks to be me, I guess. But no, I'm going with Flash Gordon. Flash Gordon is the epitome of an 80s campy movie. It is a terrible movie, but it's also so good. This movie I really want to see a sequel for, especially in today's day and age. Most of the actors who were in the original are still alive, except for, I believe, Max von Sydow and maybe a few others, so rest in peace to them. But I think this is the one, and it has both these movies kind of have cult followings, but I would say that if I had to say which one had a bigger cult behind it, if I could rank them that way, it would be Flash Gordon. I really want to see where this character continues. And at the end of Flash Gordon, spoiler alert, it says "the end?" ? And then we never saw what happened next. So I really am excited to see what happens next. I have a pitch that I'll do in the 2 minutes, but for now, we'll cut.
And time.
We'll cut. What do you think we are? Where do you think we are, in a movie set? Get out of here.
Listen, I don't. It doesn't
We're
matter.
not filming a movie. We're
filming
a debate match
we're
for
filming
millions
something.
of people to watch.
We're filming.
All right. We got lunch in a little bit, so we got to keep this going. Ryan, you got 2 minutes on the clock. Time starts when you begin speaking.
And what's going on in this world? So here's the deal: The Last Starfighter is a very fun, high-spirited adventure film. It really, really is. Alex Rogan, teenager, lives at a trailer park. He's not happy with his surroundings. He wants to move on to bigger and better things. And what better way to do that than to be recruited by somebody, who, and by the way, this was Robert Preston's final role in this film. He plays Centauri, who recruits Alex Rogan to his cause of being a part of, the Starfighter Academy, being recruited, getting the training, and actually becoming a real-life starfighter and going up against the enemy in this film, which I apologize, the enemy's lead name is leaving me right now, but
it's like
still
XUR or something.
Yeah, something like that. So you got, look at this. Again, I know we bring this up a lot, but I'm gonna say it again. The Last Starfighter has a 76% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. And listen, someone once said that they described this film, The Last Starfighter, as a surprisingly pleasant variation on the Star Wars boom of its time, with sharp and witty performances from two reliable character actors and some elegant gadgetry, okay? In the year 2017, Variety described this film as having a simple yet ingenious plot and continued the action is suitably fast and furious. But what makes this movie especially enjoyable are the quirky character touches given to guests, and the fellow players. And Variety also noted that this film, or film critic Gene Siskel, described The Last Starfighter as the best of all the Star Wars imitators, the absolute best of the Star Wars imitators. So you can't argue with that. When you get Alex Rogan, you get Lance Guest, you got a very young and beautiful Catherine Mary Stewart as the love interest, you get a whole bunch of other great, well-known actors and actresses in this thing. You can't go wrong. A kid who plays a video game and then actually lives his dream of being in that video game in real life, doing something bigger and better with his life and saving the galaxy. What more could anyone ask? As Ned Beatty once said in Superman 1978. There's a lot more. There's a bit more to go into, but we'll discuss that in just a moment. Stay tuned.
All right, on Nightly News with Brian Williams or whoever's hosting
You're
it when this
welcome.
airs.
You're welcome.
Madeeh, back to you for 2 minutes.
I'm going to spend my 2 minutes just pitching my sequel. So, Flash Gordon, the sequel, needs to fully understand that it's a campy's 80 movie, and the sequel has to be in that same realm. It has to be in the same kind of campy realm. It can't take itself too seriously. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And that's kind of where some of its charm comes from. So, what we're going to do is we're going to have a bit more exploration of the world of Mondo that we visit in the original movie, and the different moons and realms that are surrounding it. If you read the comics, which nobody has, there's also the Lion Men and the Lion Women on a neighboring, let's say, area. There's the women from Erebor, which we haven't met yet. We've only seen the men so far. Also, we met Voltan's daughter, and she's going to play a huge part in the sequel. Basically, what my idea is the end of the Flash Gordon movie, Max von Sydow's Emperor Ming puts his own body and soul into his evil ring. Now, obviously, we can't have Max von Sydow back, so what will happen is someone new takes up the ring and is embodied by Max von Sydow's character of Emperor Ming. So that's kind of how we're getting around that aspect of it. Flash and Dale are finally able to come back to Earth because they figured out how to get there. They know the trajectory. They know they have the technology to do so now. But as they're preparing to go to Earth, they realize that someone else is out there with Ming's abilities. So they have to teach their child or their children. Baron, who's played by Timothy Dalton, his child also has to come together, and Voltan's daughter all come together, and everyone has to unite to try and beat this new version of Ming that is coming out. So it follows basically the same kind of plot steps as the first one does. Everyone has to come together to defeat this evil because no one can take them on their own. But once they come together, magic happens. So that's kind of how we're going. Doesn't have to use as much CGI. Stay with the old things. Use miniatures. Use map paintings as backgrounds.
And
use
time.
a weird... Okay.
Killed you.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to go to the 4-minute open round. Time starts when the first person speaks.
All right, so let's talk about a pitch for The Last Starfighter Part 2. The Last Starfighter ended on a massive cliffhanger with Alex Rogan and his girlfriend, who's the character name escapes me for the moment, and I'm sorry, Catherine Mary Stewart, but we love you to pieces. So she goes off in the spaceship with Alex, and they go up, and away. But where do they go? What happens? Does he go into another battle? Does he have his girlfriend go into a battle? Does she learn the ways of the Last Starfighter Academy? Does she become the next recruit? Or does she stay, does she stay at home while Alex is saving the galaxy every other week? We don't know. Also, there's a kid, spoiler alert, at the end of the first film, one of Alex Rogan's friend, I think it was his little brother, ends up playing the game at the end of the movie. So you're thinking, oh, well, maybe there's a passing of the torch story to be had here. Maybe. Do we see it? I don't know. But it would be fun to see because families need hope. They need something to believe in. No offense against Flash Gordon and his homies and that soundtrack by Queen, but The Last Starfighter had a spirit. It had a heart. It had alien creatures that make a heck of a lot more sense with the makeup because the people in Flash Gordon, I don't know what they were smoking, but some of those aliens look weird, bruh. They had too many drinks that day, and they looked like they were tripping on something. But in The Last Starfighter, the alien species makes sense. So to see Alex Rogan, his wife, played by Catherine Mary Stewart at this point, and maybe they pump out a couple of kids. What happens to them? Do they end up being starfighters themselves? Do they join the enemy? Do they go up against their dad or something like that? I mean, listen. You could say that this is borrowing a lot of elements from Star Wars, but what makes it so good is its heart, is its spirit. The score by, I believe, don't quote me on this, I believe the score was done by someone named Jerry Goldsmith, maybe? And if that's the case, I mean, granted, he's gone now, but his sons and his other sons can take over and put together the score. There is so much potential with this franchise. You can have something focusing on Alex Rogan and his wife. You can have something focusing on his little brother. Heck, you can have something that focuses on other galaxies out there to see if there are other similar academies that train people to be starfighters, or do they train them to be warriors, on the ground carrying their MK-47s or something or other. You can do so many different things with this. You can create a comic book series accessible to all audiences. Whereas Flash Gordon, people are going to look at this and they're looking at the original probably and they're like, huh? Queen? Some guy? And the girl looks at Flash Gordon and says, Flash, I love you, but we only have 24 hours to save the Earth.
14
What is
hours.
that? What
It's
the frack
campy.
is that?
No, I'm not saying that Flash Gordon is a great movie, but like it has stood the test of time for what it is. And I mean, honestly, based on The Last Starfighter, I watched it a couple of days ago just in preparation for this.
Oh,
for
nice.
the first
Good
time.
for you.
It's a good movie, but I would much rather it be remade with today's technology than have a sequel made. Because I think they can do so much better. And if you look back, I think either this or Tron was like the first time they used computer graphics in a movie, and it doesn't really hold up. Like if we really were able to retell the original story, because the original story is great, and if you can put that with, the technology of today and kind of enhance it that way, I think it would be great. But I don't know if making a sequel is going to really add anything to it. The Last Starfighter on its own is fine. Flash Gordon, I think if you have such a fan base that loves the original like show and the original movie, and you improve it by having a sequel that is in the same like vein, like have someone like Matthew Vaughn or Taika Waititi, someone who understands that it's ridiculousness and it's campiness. And you talk about the alien costumes, they made this movie for like $20, I feel like. So if they keep that same kind of budget and keep that same costume design, because the costume design is weird as hell, but it works for the movie. And that's kind of something in The Last Starfighter. A lot of the costume design was good, but we don't really get to see a lot of it. And the villains, it was basically just them wearing a bald cap. Like, they could do so much better if they remade it rather than try and give it a sequel and keep those same elements. That's why I say that having a Flash Gordon sequel fitting into the campiness would be so much better than having a Last Starfighter sequel when they could just improve on the original and bring it to a whole new audience.
All right,
Also,
so it's time.
Get Adam Lambert to do the song track for
Yeah,
Flash Gordon.
sure.
Why not? Throw that in there.
All right, good use of that last 3 seconds, Madeeh. We're going to go to the 1 minute closing. Ryan, you are up first. Time starts when you begin speaking.
The 1980s action film genre had so much to offer us during that period. Had so much. And I feel that The Last Starfighter, none of it was really all that corny and just weird and twisted. And I mean, you don't have love interests yelling into the camera, we only have 24 hours to save the Earth. We must go now. What is that? That's nothing. When you have a beautiful woman in Catherine Mary Stewart turning and figuring out that her boyfriend is up there doing something special, like saving the universe or something like that, she looks dead into the camera and she says, I love you, Alex Rogan. Like, that is just awesome sauce. That is just cool. And to see where this story goes, Lance Guest and Catherine Mary Stewart are still very much alive. So I would love to see a sequel. What happened to that family of theirs? What happened? How many other galaxies are out there? How many other species are out there? How many other wars could Alex Rogan and his team be fighting? I want to know more about this stuff. I want to see that. And I think an audience of all ages would love to see this in the movies as a comic book property. It would do oh so well and bring the 80s back in a great way with The Last Starfighter.
All right, Madeeh, back to you. 1 minute on the clock. Time starts when you begin speaking.
If you really want to bring the 80s back, we got to acknowledge that it was campy as hell in the 80s. And Flash Gordon is as campy as it gets. Now, this might seem like a joke answer to a lot of people, but I'm being dead serious. Flash Gordon has been a huge part of my family life. Like, my mom can quote it. My aunts can quote it. My grandpa does not watch a lot of movies. He can quote it. Like, it is insane that they send a New York Jets quarterback to save the galaxy. Like, it doesn't make sense. But that's part of the charm. And this sequel that I'm pitching isn't going to break records or, change cinema or anything like that, or change anything about the story. It's just allowing our audience to continue to have fun with these characters that we met 40 years ago. I mean, most of the actors, again, still alive, still kicking. Sam Jones still wants to do a sequel, and I think that, might as well get him now while he's able to still tell the story. And it's just allowing us to have fun instead of trying to do
And
anything
time.
crazy.
All right, guys, another great round. I'm going to go ahead and send both of you to the back as we await the judge's decision. I'll bring them in screen. And again, once again, just to run down a couple of fun things I looked up while the fight was going. So for the last Starfighter, to clear up some of the names that were said, Zur, Xur, is the villain of the film. Catherine Mary Stewart's character is Maggie Gordon, no relation to Flash Gordon. And the character at the end of the film that plays the game is his younger brother, Louis Rogan is the character's name. Rotten Tomatoes was brought up. Flash Gordon, believe it or not, actually has a higher like rating on Rotten Tomatoes than The Last Starfighter. It has an 83% for critics, 69% for audiences. The Last Starfighter has a 76% for critics and a 69% for audiences. When we're looking at other aspects, The Last Starfighter was actually not composed by Jerry Goldsmith. It was instead composed by Craig Safin, who is actually most known for his work on the show Cheers. But he did do composition for other films. Tron, was the first film released that used extensive CGI within its production, but The Last Starfighter is the second, and among film historians is credited as equally important as Tron for the advancement of things in film. And then when talking about just real life potential pickups for these films, since 2015, Flash Gordon is a film that has been on the table for multiple reboots. It's currently at Fox. In 2015, there was a project in talks with Matthew Vaughn. However, that never went anywhere, and he moved on to continue the Kingsman franchise. In 2018, after the success of Overlord, director Julius Avery was brought in to direct a reboot. However, that also went nowhere. In 2019, then it was announced after the Disney-Fox merger that Disney wanted to reboot it as an animated film, with Taika Waititi being brought in to write the script. However, that also went nowhere. However, as recently as earlier this year in July, Disney has announced that they do plan to take a look at the live action aspect of remaking the film once again, though nothing more concrete has been said. For The Last Starfighter, in 2008, a film called Starfighter, which would be a sequel to The Last Starfighter, was put into production. It spent 4 years in pre-production, including having creatives like duo Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg, all the way to Steven Spielberg being involved with the film at different points in time. However, the project was shut down when the film's original writer, who also holds partial rights, his name being Jonathan Budhol, stepped in and said not to continue it. However, a few years later, he later changed his mind and is currently working with screenwriter Gary Whitta, best known for his work on Rogue One, a Star Wars story, to attempt to reboot the film. Or not rebooted, excuse me, a sequel. This one is a sequel, but we have not heard any updates since October 2020, so about a year ago. And as was referenced at the start, because I did not know this, and it's a fun thing to look up, on November 8th this year, it was announced that Universal Pictures is actively developing a sequel to Midnight Run, starring Robert De Niro and Regina Hall in place of the Charles Grodin character. And that was not a joke from Madeeh. In the original production of this match, Madeeh first picked Midnight Run and then asked to switch his answer soon after to Flash Gordon. That happened on October 27th, so not 10 days later was this film announced. So there you go. I guess Madeeh is on the cusp of what Hollywood wants. With all of that being said, JD, I go to you first. Who do you think gets the vote, and what was the main thing that sold you?
So I have to go first? That's great. It was a really close round for me. Honestly, I went back and forth multiple times. I think my point went to Ryan. It went to Ryan because ultimately his premise sold me more. It ultimately came down to the premise where I kind of felt Madeeh was pitching almost like the same movie with some slight changes. I actually really liked Ryan's take about, bringing in the kids and maybe his son is working for the enemy now. I kind of liked that idea. That really intrigued me, so I went with Ryan.
All right, Abel, I go to you. Who gets your vote, and what was the main thing that sold you?
I'm of two minds, Aaron. I think Ryan's closing statement was actually probably the strongest argument in the whole match. But for the rest of the match, I was more on Madeeh's side because his pitch meeting was actually a lot more solid and well thought out, I feel like, whereas Ryan, for me, was kind of all over the place. And he sort of started to narrow it down during his closing argument. I would have loved to hear more about that. But yeah, I'm afraid this one goes to Madeeh again for me.
All right, so we got 1 vote to 1, which means it comes back to me. And I will say again, I do think you guys both did a great job. I like that you both had pitches you kind of came in with. But at the end of the day, my vote is going to go to Ryan on this one, simply because while I do like Madee's pitch and I see the angle he is going for, I think JD is right in his kind of assessment that Madeeh's, and he straight up admitted it is basically doing the same thing but slightly alterated. That's nothing that's new to Hollywood. Whereas I thought, even though it wasn't as focused, Ryan pitched ideas that were a little more unique and challenging to the type of film that this would be. And so for that, I am going to go with him for the point. But judges, once again, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and send both of you to the back as we bring back in our competitors and we go on to question number 4.
Oh my God.
That's nice.
I'm going to make you work for this, man. I'm going to make you work.
Well, keep working, and
All
we're
right.
going to that speed
And,
round, so we'll see how you like it.
As I've said multiple times, jokingly, this is kind of the match of goodwill. These guys just kind of happen to get questions assigned to them that work out in a positive manner. And Ryan, I'm just going to take a guess of intuition and say you like sports.
No, as a matter of fact, I don't. But this is going to be a great question, and I look forward to seeing what our arguments are respectively, because I'm a movie fan, not a sports fan. But I do watch movies about sports. But other than that, this should be fun.
So, Madeeh, am I also wrong in guessing that you're a sports guy too? Did I just read both of you horribly wrong?
No, I genuinely do like sports, so I'm a big sports guy. And
okay. Well, unfortunately, it didn't come home this summer, but maybe this win can.
All right, comment.
Oh,
I thought there was going to be a happy match. Come on now.
I'm sorry. Listen, I was supporting them too. So
it's still
I don't even know what we're talking about, but okay.
It's all right, Ryan. Don't worry about it.
Question number 4.
I don't sports, bro.
What real life sports story that hasn't been adapted to film yet should be made into a movie?
Great question.
Now with this, with this question, we are obviously real life sports stories are a thing that many of times have been adapted, whether we're focusing on a person, like a specific personal event in sports, or we're focusing on that team, union. We have seen a lot of different stories, but there are still many that have not been made. I made a English football reference. This question was actually written and then ended up being assigned to you guys coinciding with the announcement that they were making a film based on English football player Jamie Vardy and kind of his rise into becoming a top footballer in the Premier League. And so with that, I thought, you know what, that would be an interesting question. And we got 2 very different answers. So I'm looking forward to this one. Guys, timer is up on the screen. Madeeh, you are first, and it will tick
real quick.
when you
do we have the extra time thing in this league,
no.
or is that no? That's not a thing. Okay,
sorry.
Bummer.
We can cut that out. That's fine.
Marker. Do it again.
Action. Am I going first?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. So, when we talk about the greatest upset in sports history, one thing comes around no matter which audience you're talking to, who you're talking to, or where in the world they are. And that is when Buster Douglas knocked out Mike Tyson in 1990. Now, for those of you who are not boxing fans, I'll give you guys a bit of a backstory. February 11th, 1990, Buster Douglas is facing off against Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson, at that point, was favored 42-1 to win this fight. He was undefeated. He was undisputed. He was a heavyweight champion of the world who held the WBA, WBC, IBF, and lineal heavyweight titles. This was basically, by the press, called a warm-up fight for Tyson before he went on to fight Evander Holyfield. And Buster Douglas gave Mike Tyson the first loss of his career and has now been known as the greatest upset in sports history.
And that is time. Ryan, back to you for your opening minute.
So when it comes to moments in sports, something that's memorable, something that people can hang their hats on and say, man, that's a great moment. That's going to inspire me. Something that's never happened before in NCAA men's basketball. Specifically, I'm talking about the time that UMBC, I'm a Marylander, so this means a little something, something to me. UMBC, the Retrievers, okay? University of Maryland, Baltimore County. They went into the tournament and they were the first 16th seeded team to beat the number one ranked team at that point in this tournament, the Virginia Cavaliers, in the NCAA Division I tournament on March 16th, 2018. So it wasn't that long ago before the apocalypse happened. It was only the second time in college basketball overall after the number 16 seeded Harvard defeated overall number 1 Stanford in the women's tournament 20 years earlier. Let's wrap your head around that for just a moment, because I got a lot more to share with you, but we'll do that right after this, and I will concede the rest of my time.
All right, Madeeh, you'll have 2 minutes on the clock, and time will start when you begin speaking.
Okay, so I'm going to go into the backstory of this fight a little bit and tell you why it needs to be cinematically told. Everyone knows the name Mike Tyson. At this point, he was knocking people out just for smiling at him wrong. Like, he was angry, he was lethal, he was probably the greatest fighter of the time, bar none. He was regarded number 1 heavyweight and number 1 pound for pound fighter multiple years in a row, which is really rare if you're a heavyweight. Usually it comes down to like the lightweights or the middleweights, but for a heavyweight to get it is on the only last time it could happen, I think, was Muhammad Ali and maybe a couple guys in between. He had just fought Carl Williams and knocked him out in 93 seconds, and everyone thought this was basically just another repeat of that, just on the way. Buster Douglas was ranked number 7 in his division, and everyone was like, yeah, he's a good fighter, but he's not going to last against Mike. He had a title fight before, but lost, and then, if we're going, I want to tell this movie from Buster Douglas's point of view. About a month or so before the fight happens, his mother passes away suddenly. And then the day before the fight, or 2-3 days before, approximately, his girlfriend suffers, is end up hospitalized because of a bad kidney disease, and she gets very, very sick. So mentally speaking, he's supposed to be all in for this big fight of his life, but he's got all this other stuff on his mind. You get into that fight, which Tyson himself said, I could, probably beat this guy if I was asleep if I stayed awake for 5 weeks straight and then just walked into this fight, I could still beat him. Then you get into the fight and you see Buster Douglas not backing down from the baddest man on the planet. He gives it everything. It's a very Rocky Drago moment where Buster Douglas just starts coming at him and Tyson doesn't really know what to do. His corner's like, what the hell's going on? We don't know what's happening. Everything that needed to happen happened for Buster Douglas to win this fight. Buster Douglas hits him in the eye and closes his eye, and it's a real Russian's Cup moment. And honestly, boxing is such a cinematic sport anyways, and we've seen that through multiple boxing movies, through the Rocky franchise, through Raging Bull, and various other boxing franchises. This can be told such a great way.
All right, back to Ryan, 2 minutes on the clock when you start speaking.
Boxing films are a dime a dozen. We've seen so many of them now, and the Rocky franchise and the Creed franchise, and his son, the son of Creed, is going to get his own franchise. His wife's going to get her own franchise. We all, somewhere down the line, they're going to get it. But when it comes down to it, we haven't really seen a whole lot of great basketball films in recent years. Sure, we had one not too long ago before the pandemic or during the pandemic with The Way Back with Ben Affleck. That's fine. But this is a true story about how a team that was underdog, no one cared, no one thought they were going to make it past the first round, and they did it. And they are only the second team to do this in the entire history of the NCAA division of basketball. That is insane when you think about it. I mean, look at this. Here's the pitch for this movie. You have a coach, Ryan Odom, grew up as a Virginia fan. A Virginia Cavaliers fan, the son of former UVA assistant coach Dave Odom. He recalls the experience of being in attendance to cheer on the Cavaliers when they advanced back to the Final Four in 1984. And then fast forward to 2018, he's coaching at UMBC, and this is only his second year with the team, second year coaching UMBC, and he takes them to the tournament, and they beat Virginia, a team that he grew up idolizing, and he beat them. Who'd have thought in a million years that someone would be able to do that? That's insanity times 1,000. Whereas Mike Tyson doesn't have the cleanest reputation. UMBC is a clear-cut, wholesome, wholehearted film that you can tell with a bunch of players and the coach. You could focus on Ryan Odom. You could focus on the players. You could do both. You can have a balance there. There's a good balance, and they've done that with other sports films before. Example, Miracle with Kurt Russell and those guys. Great balance between focusing on the players on the team and the coach. You can do that just as well in this movie, focusing on UMBC's win in the NCAA tournament and having, whoever you want to play Ryan Odom, and you get a bunch of basketball players to play the basketball players, or, young up-and-coming actors, give them their shot to play these characters.
And time. All right, we're going to go on to the open round. 4 minutes on the clock for you when the first person speaks.
All right, yeah, Mike Tyson doesn't have the best, personal life. We all can acknowledge that. I'm not going to say it to his face. I'm not that stupid. But we also, if I'm telling this from Buster Douglas' point of view, that makes it more compelling, I feel like, because then he's this huge hulking villain that Buster Douglas has to overcome, right? It wouldn't be as intriguing if it was Mike Tyson's point of view. It's like, all right, I'm going to fight this guy and then I'm going to lose. It doesn't help because you can't really cheer for him in that way. Buster Douglas, you want to cheer for this guy. Everyone, you have it in the back of your mind you want him to win, but no one had it in their thoughts that he was going to. He's much more likable. And when you have that kind of likable character going up against this huge hulking monster that Mike Tyson is and was at the time, even more so, it helps kind of have that David and Goliath feel, which we haven't really had in a boxing movie in a long time. Last time really was, Creed 2 kind of did it, but not to the same level. I would say the last time we had a boxing movie where someone was facing that huge of an odd was maybe Rocky 4. I'm trying to think of another one where it was all right, yeah, he's definitely going to lose this, and then he gets it. I guess there's a scene in Warrior, but there's not really any movies that really have that kind of huge uphill mountain that they have to climb in order to get to the mountaintop.
Well, that's fair. By the way, Creed 2 is a heck of a lot better than Rocky 4. # that's a fact. So let me put it to you this way: when it comes to boxing, you have two guys. You have the antagonist and you have the protagonist. You have the good guy and the bad guy. We get that. But with UMBC and people learning in sports, yes, when you're an athlete and you accomplish something on your own, that's amazing. Don't get me wrong. I'm not dogging individual accomplishments, but the team is something you belong to, something you feel, something you have to earn. If anyone in movies taught us anything, that is what being on a team is all about. And when you look at the facts here, man, in the NCAA tournament, a number 16 seeds were 0-135 all time against number 1 seeds going into tournaments. Since the tournament field expanded to 64 teams in the year 1985 AD, not BC. Okay, UMBC entered the season with a second-year coach, couple of new players, one or two, couple of seniors here and there, and they accomplished the impossible. This had people raving for weeks and months. Maryland has never seen anything like this, in sports, regardless whether it's the Ravens or the Terrapins. No one's talking about UMBC. Nobody cares. But when you have this team go up against Virginia, who've been, and they beat them in the first round, and Virginia's like, what the frack just happened? This is a Cinderella story. This is a Cinderella run for that one game. But man, you can do so much with this movie. You can do how Ryan Odom came to be a coach on the team. You can get the setup of how the players and their personalities, whether they work together, whether they were having issues, how they all came together and beat this team by 20 or so points in that respective game. I don't have the exact score in front of me. I apologize. But still, it's insanity. It's insanity. So to have an entire team and a coach go up against this mountain known as UVA Cavaliers, that's something that people are going to want to see. Sure, you could see a boxing film a million times over, But basketball films are unique in that they don't just focus on, oh, one force and one force over here and one force over there. No, 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 no. You're focusing on the entirety of the team and the coaches and how the players are dealing with this pressure of going into this game and the coaches going into this game and their families going into this game. What's going to happen? Because they're number 16 going up against the number 1 seed. The families are probably thinking they're going to give it their best shot, but they're not going to win. And then the end of the game, you're like, oh my, like this is like winning the entirety of a tournament in one game. Sure, they only made it past the first round, but this is something that the millions and millions of people can get behind. Whereas Mike Tyson and his sketchy attitude and sketchy reputation, don't know if that's right for a new boxing film, because we have 5 boxing films come out every year, whereas we barely have a basketball film come out every year. We only have a basketball film every 3 or 4 or 5 years, and that's why the UMBC winning the NCAA tournament should be on screen. And those are the facts, Jack.
And that is time. Madeeh, I go back to you for 1 minute closing. Time starts when you begin speaking.
Oh my God.
Ryan, you kind of shot yourself in the foot, and I'm going to tell you why. You just said UMBC won by 20. They did. That doesn't really make for dramatic moments in sports. The drama more came from the upset, whereas a 20-point win in basketball is basically the game was over like 10 minutes left. I mean, I watched that game. I remember I was losing my mind that they were winning, but the ending of the game was boring to watch live. And, you know, there's cinematic tricks that you can do, but winning by 20 is not that impressive. I would much rather, if they had won by 2 or 3 or something in the final seconds, perfect. Yeah, go for it. But it's a 20-point game. They really just wipe the floor with them. It's not as intense to watch. Also, basketball and NCAA specifically is very North American. Boxing is a worldwide sport. You can have an international audience enjoy the story of Mike Tyson going down because an international audience, the audience in Tokyo, is the audience that saw it happen for real. And yeah, Mike Tyson's not a good guy, but we're watching his one failure that led to him being a broken man.
All right, Ryan,
Probably
back
is.
to you. Time starts when you begin speaking.
All right, look. The UMBC win is something that has, like, in the men's division anyway, has never been done before. Boxers get beat. Boxers win every single match. Wins and losses come a dime a dozen. But this win by UMBC in the tournament against Virginia is something that anyone of any age in any sport in any country, Madeeh, can get behind, okay? Sure, you may say it's North American, but doesn't matter because this film can be played everywhere. Because when you have a group of people gather together to go up against this huge opponents, and they take them down the way they did by a coach who used to worship at the altar of UVA, and he beats them, coaching UMBC in Maryland, a college that nobody cares about, nobody has ever talked about up until this point. That's something special. And that is something that deserves to be seen on the big screen instead of seeing, oh yeah, Mike Tyson got his first loss. Whatever. This is a moment that needs to be seen by everyone. UMBC. Go.
And time. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and send both of you to the back and bring our judges on screen. And that was sports. So there's not a lot of fact checking in that because, I mean, it's sports. It's real shit that happened. There's nothing they could really lie about. The only thing to clarify is they were both correct in that it was a 20-point difference, evenly, exactly 74-54 was the final score in the basketball game. With all that said, Abel, I go to you. Who gets your vote and what was it that sold you?
Yes, sir. Being someone who's not from North America, I'm really trying not to let personal biases in here, but the story about the Mike Tyson KO, how it was such a personal story, the point of view that you'd be taking, how cinematic boxing is, and the fact that he countered Ryan by mentioning Tyson would be the villain. So that I mean, yeah, this really sold me, and Madeeh gets my point for sure.
All right, and JD, I go to you next. Where does your vote go to, and what sold you?
My point also went to Madeeh. I think Ryan shot himself in the foot a little bit because Ryan was the one that brought up Tyson, and I actually thought, knowing a bit about sports, like Mike Tyson is a fascinating character, and he wasn't mentioning before Ryan brought that up, and so if you make him the villain, and you get in this time is the time where Mike Tyson his issues were starting to show. That could be a really, really fascinating movie where for the Tyson and Buster pick.
All right. Judges, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and send you to the back because. And your winner by a final score of 3-1, it is Madeeh Rehman coming
Holy
in
shit.
with the victory. And Madeeh, I gave you some joking crap last time about how when we reset the records, people always talked about how you were a good debater, but you had a record of like 3-7 or some ridiculous shit. You are at the
weird.
best. You're at the best you've ever been right now at 2-0. How are you feeling?
I'm aging like a fine wine, I guess. But physically, I think less like a fine wine and more like I don't know, like a grape or some shit. I don't know. It's not a pretty sight over here.
That would be a raisin.
Yeah, no, I on a good day I look like a raisin. This is mostly just makeup and moisturizer and shit. So, but no, Ryan, man, killed it with his arguments. I thought he had the James Bond one for sure. You are definitely dying right now. Like someone is about to kill you on camera, and we're live. So this is going to be great for my my PR stuff. I haven't been canceled yet, but you're going to die on camera with me. So this is great.
What? So it can't be you? You have proof?
Listen, my hands are right here. I'm on camera, not in the same room. I think this is all the proof.
As long as your hands are there, I know you're not doing more than one thing. So we're
although
good.
I am the only person of color on this stream, so technically I'd still be the number one suspect no matter what. Like that's just how it works.
That's probably true, unfortunately. So with that said, so because I know how to produce my own show well, I made a comment in error earlier. Your next opponent is not the winner of our previous match, Alec versus Jeremy. Because again, I know how to produce my own show. Those of you who watched both matches, first off, thank you for doing so. And second, you knew that an hour and something minutes ago. You will be playing the winner of the last match remaining. We have one match left to go in our 1-0 bracket, and that is Tyler Birch versus Evan DeGraff. The winner of that match will be your next opponent.
Yes.
I know off that look, you know one of those competitors very well, but who would you like to see in the next round?
Give me Evan. Listen, I don't know Tyler at all. I want to make that clear. I'm not trying to throw shit on his name or anything. I just don't have any interaction with him at this point. Evan, man, I really want to face Evan. I think it would be so much fun because he was my first. I don't know if it was a trivia match or a debate match, but he was the first guy I ever went up against in these leagues. So it would be really nice if I could like see him and like face off against him and see kind of how far we both come. But yeah, I definitely would prefer Evan out of the two, just purely because I know him.
That is absolutely fair. It's worked out for you so far, so we'll see what happens.
Shit.
Maybe you'll finally meet a stranger in the next round. We do not know.
Who knows?
But Madeeh, thank you so much, sir. We will see you once again in the next round.
Props to Ryan
tournament.
Before I end out of here, but you know what I mean.
Absolutely. And we're going to go ahead and bring in the man you give props to, and I got to give him props as well, Ryan Permison. Man, that was real close every single time. That was real close, man. How are you feeling?
Tired, exhausted. I gotta say, congratulations to Madeeh. Put up a heck of a fight. There were some great questions, great responses, great debates. Thank you to all the judges and the producers who make this show work. The graphics are great. The countdowns are great. It's scary. The pressure's on when you see that clock ticking down, like on an episode of 24 with my boy Kiefer Sutherland, Jack Bauer. But you know what? When the pressure's on, you got to be on your A game. And I guess tonight I put in a good effort, but I may not have been on my A game. I don't know. I know some of my choices were questionable, especially considering the fact that Spaceballs isn't ranked amongst one of Mel Brooks' greatest films. But the only reason I chose that is because that's one of the few, if not only, Mel Brooks films I've actually seen. So I got some homework to do after this match, apparently. I got some Mel Brooks filmography I got to dive into at some point. Listen, I'll get to that after I get through my 50 other thousand movies that are sitting on my desk over here on the side of my studio on Blu-ray and DVD, mind you. But
Wow.
which includes
Classic.
box sets of TV series to boot, Aaron. So I got a lot of work to do, son. But listen, this was fun. The Martin Campbell question was great. The 80s question makes you think, man. That makes you think. So. No, but listen, this was great. I'm 1-1 now, which means I guess I'm at 500. So I guess that means I need to have another match so I can put myself over the hill and be 2-1 rather than being at 500. Because being a 500 player is fine, but it's not the greatest thing in the world. I don't think. I want to be a winner because winners win and losers lose. So tonight I came up short, and that's okay because Madeeh and I, as we said in the backstage area, and as we said to you who are watching this at home. We're friends. We're pals. We respect each other. We know each other's skill sets. We know how the game is played. And that blinking light is driving me up a wall, Aaron. My God. But
Well,
you're killing me, Smalls. But this was
I will
fun.
end your and the viewers' miseries.
Yeah, thank you
right
for
now.
having me. I look forward to coming back whenever that is. And whoever my next opponent is, watch out. Because an angry Ryan the Quote is a dangerous Ryan the Quote.
Absolutely. Ryan, you did ask after your last match, ask for a long layover due to stress. You got it this time. Unfortunately, it is a loss, but it means you will get a longer layover to do all the other homework on your desk. And I look forward to seeing you at the end of that road. We'll see you next time on the show.
Thank you, kind sir.
All right. And guys, that is the end of it's technically not the first one, but again, because I suck at branding and getting that done on time, that is the end of the first official Battleground Blitz. I hope you guys enjoyed both matches. Again, if you did not check out the first half of this event with Alec versus Jeremy, go check that out after this. And again, Madeeh moving on to the next round. Ryan already not ready to go, but willing to come back in the future, and we will get him that match the soonest we can. And I will end all of your suffering. If I have caused anybody any seizures tonight, I do apologize. We will take care of that. Maybe sometime. Hit me up on Facebook. I'll see what the bill looks like, and then I'll give you an answer. Please be sure to check out everything related to Movie Battleground. Rate, comment, subscribe, interact with the video, interact with the channel. Subscribe for more. We have matches every single Saturday night and periodically every Thursday night as well to give you guys some extra content. So we always got something coming up, and this tournament is far from over. We have one match left in the round of 16 in each of our brackets. Those are going to go up over the next week. And then we are on to the final 8 in each bracket as we continue to get closer and closer to our first ever champion. With that said, my name is Aaron Knoll, and we will see you next time on the Movie Battleground. Take care, everybody.